Welcome to Lawfully Explained, the series where we take big legal topics and break them down into everyday conversations. Now today, we'll be diving into the topic that's on everybody's lips. You guessed it, we'll be talking about constitutional reform. Now it might sound like something that is reserved for only legal experts and parliamentarians, but trust me, it is something that every Jamaican should know about. Now, constitutional reform is about more than just the legal language. It is an opportunity to reshape Jamaica's supreme law to better reflect our values, our identity, and our vision for the future. Now, joining us today is Ms. Shereika Mills, Constitutional Reform Officer at the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. She'll be here to walk us through where Jamaica currently stands in the reform journey, what's been achieved so far, and how we can get involved in shaping the future of our Constitution. So, Ms. Mills, welcome to Lawfully Explained.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So we're here to talk about constitutional reform, right? But before we dive into the meat of the matter, tell us generally, what is constitutional reform?
Well, in a constitutional reform process, this involves amending the Constitution. And usually in these processes, it involves a rethinking of whether the form of government that's been created by that Constitution, the system of government, whether the institutions created by that Constitution are actually working efficiently and to the best benefit of the people of that country.
All right. So we talk about the best benefit of people in a specific country. Now we're talking about Jamaica.
Yes.
Right? I'm sure all of our viewers want to know constitutional reform in the context of Jamaica. So what does that generally mean?
So in a Jamaican context, the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs has taken on this constitutional reform program where we are amending the Constitution. And so we've broken up the reform program into phases. We have 3 phases, and we're currently in the first phase of that program. So in this first phase, we are seeking to abolish the constitutional monarchy to establish Jamaica as a republic. So we are changing our form of government from a constitutional monarchy to that of a republican form of government. And so that's a major change. We're going to be changing our head of state from the Queen and the Governor General as the Queen's representative to having a president that is a Jamaican head of state.
So we no longer have King Charles III as our head of state, but we'll have a Jamaican president, right? Okay, so the MLCA has the mandate for constitutional reform, right? However, I do know that there was a committee that was formed to help the MLCA promulgate this reform program. Tell us a little bit more about the role of that committee.
Okay, so that committee is the Constitutional Reform Committee, and they were established in March of 2023, and they're a group of experts drawn from different sectors of the society. So we have a faith-based, a representative from a faith-based community, we have a representative from civil society, we have a representative from community-based organizations, we have both sides of the parliamentary aisle on the committee. And so the idea is that that group of experts drawn from all these different sectors of society are supposed to come together and make recommendations as to what would be best for the people in this phase of the reform program. And they produced a report which was tabled as a ministry paper, and we've used this report to essentially inform many of the provisions of the Constitution Amendment Republic Bill that was tabled in December.
So I'm glad that you mentioned the report, and I'm also glad that you mentioned the bill, because I want to talk about some of the key achievements that we have had since we have established this constitutional reform committee, or even went on this, as we like to call it, the Road to Republic campaign, right? So tell us, we have the report that was tabled in May of 2024, and remind us again what that report was for.
So that report essentially contains all the recommendations of the Constitutional Reform Committee in terms of what they thought that this stage of the reform process should accomplish. So that involves all of their recommendations and also gives a little insight into their rationale into coming to some of these decisions.
All right, so after the report, what was the next achievement that we've had about constitutional reform?
After the report, well, okay, let's go before the report.
Okay,
so before the report, we would have had tabled and passed in the Parliament a bill that amended Section 61 of the Constitution.
Yes.
And Section 61 of the Constitution essentially contains our words of enactment, which are essentially the words that tell us what authority the bill is being enacted under.
Okay.
And previously, the words of enactment had a reference to Her Majesty in it, and that was amended to remove the reference to Her Majesty. So now a bill is passed by the Parliament of Jamaica Jamaica and were appropriate by the Parliament and people of Jamaica, because we know that our Constitution provides for referenda. So, right.
All right, so we have the words of enactment, we have the report of the Constitutional Reform Committee. What else have we achieved?
We've also tabled the Constitution Amendment Republic Bill.
Yes.
That was tabled on December 10, 2024, and that is the first time in the history of Jamaica that we've had a bill tabled in the Parliament that establishes a republic as a form of government, meaning that it establishes a Jamaican head of state in our government.
All right, so we're thinking about removing from the constitutional monarchy. We don't want to have the king, or if it is that we have a queen as our head of state, we want to have a Jamaican president. So somebody who understands the will of the people of Jamaica, somebody who understands how it is that we live our lives daily, or daily routine, you know, what are the social norms here in Jamaica, right? And how do you think that will benefit Jamaica in terms of the importance of why constitutional is supposed to be done in the present and in the now?
So I think that, initially, we explained that constitutional reform is just rethinking whether what has been created by this constitution really reflects how we want to move forward as a modern country. And so it's definitely important now, since we haven't had a significant change to the constitution since independence, it's important for us to now rethink whether the form of government as a constitutional monarchy, if that is respectful of our Jamaican identity and of our sovereignty and of our independence. And that's something that we think is important for the country to rethink at this time. The Constitution also contains the framework for our judiciary, the framework for the executive and the legislature. And so it's an opportunity, just as Jamaicans, to rethink whether our government is serving us in the way that we think it should be.
Okay, so I realized that with the constitutional reform program, it talks about national pride and us embracing, you know, our culture and making sure that we have a better sense of nationhood. I want you to talk to us a little bit more about our national symbols or emblems and items, because I know currently they're not, you know, formally in the Constitution. Is that correct?
No, they're not in the Constitution currently, and that's something that we're also looking to change. So we call it Jamaicanizing the Constitution.
And tell the people what Jamaicanizing means.
So in Jamaicanizing the Constitution, we will firstly have the Constitution passed as an act of Parliament, which is major because our Constitution deserves that respect as an act of Parliament. We know that currently it is appended as an order in council to a piece of legislation, but we think that as the supreme law of the land, that it should be given its rightful place as a piece of legislation itself. And so it's going to be passed as an act of the Parliament. It will actually form volume 1 of the revised laws of Jamaica, so it's going to be the first thing that you see. And in terms of Jamaicanizing, we're also adding these symbols that you had just mentioned. So we have our the national bird, the flag, the national prayer, the song, the anthem wasn't even in the Constitution before, our national pledge. And these are symbols that Jamaicans are really, really proud of. And we think that for a document that is supposed to reflect our identity and is supposed to say who we are as a nation, that's something that should be in the Constitution.
So for those persons who do not know about the national symbols, the emblems, and the overall items, when we amend the Constitution and this is now formally a part of the Constitution, you can just open it and look at it, right? And for those persons who like to recite the anthem, you can actually know the words, right? Know the national prayer, etc. So I think that is something that is very big for us in constitutional reform. Again, just reaffirming our identity, because as Jamaicans, we're proud. There's no other country, their citizens are as proud as us as Jamaicans, right? And we want to make sure that we embrace our cultural heritage and aspirations. Now, you spoke about the bill earlier, about the Constitution Reform Bill. Talk to us a little bit about what is in that bill.
Okay, so I had just mentioned that the bill includes Jamaicanizing the Constitution. So we know it's going to be put in the Constitution as an act of Parliament. We're also going to be Jamaicanizing in terms of including those symbols, items, emblems in the Constitution. We'll also be establishing a president, a Jamaican head of state, and that's the major thing that the bill does. The bill also has provisions that reform the government in a bit, reform parliament in terms of the Senate. So we know that currently we only have senators that are drawn on the recommendation of the Prime Minister and also the leader of the opposition. But now we know that we're going to have a president, and we are including, or we have included in the bill, that 3 senators will now be selected by the president in his discretion. And so that too is major. I think as Jamaicans look for governance that is not just that does not just come from either side of the political aisle. Having 3 independent senators in the parliament as an independent voice. The bill also says where these senators will be drawn from, different sectors of society. So we also expect that there will be increased opportunities for participation in governance. And that's important. As a republic, that's what that means. It's governance that's for the people, by the people. And we want to ensure that in this process, it's not just a symbolic change, but to also look for these opportunities for increased participation as well.
All right, so I have heard some misconceptions while this process has been, being done. So one misconception is that we, as people, our opinions don't matter in this process. Do you think that is something that the MLCA is pushing, that person's opinion, it does not matter, or are we including persons to voice their opinions and to get their perspectives on this program?
Yeah, I think that we definitely do our best to know what's the pulse of the people, to get feedback. I think even just through our legal education program, we've seen thousands of Jamaicans being educated on matters of the Constitution, and we've heard your feedback, we receive the comments, and we think and pore over them very carefully. We also do a lot of media monitoring within the division. Every single article that's been written on the Constitution since we've started this reform process, I can guarantee we have a copy of it, we've read it, we know what's in it.
Time and time again.
We're really keeping up to see, what the feedback from people would be, because we also understand that at the end of this process, even when the bill is approved by the Parliament, that the people have a place to approve this bill in the referendum. So we want to ensure that we're taking account of what people are saying to the best of our ability. Not all recommendations can be actioned right now, and I think that's also something that we're keen on remembering in this phased process of reform, that when people hear no, it simply means not no, that there are issues that we will consider, but not everything can be considered right now. And that's not even just from a policy perspective, that is also from a technical perspective. For the technical work that has to go behind a lot of these decisions, it requires time.
And it requires a process, right? And we don't want to do anything that violates the processes of how these things should get done. So another misconception that I've heard would be that, once we get a Jamaican president, which is our head of state, we'll no longer have a prime minister.
Well, that's not true.
Exactly. Yes. So tell our people, what is the difference between having a head of state as our Jamaican president and having the head of government as our prime minister?
Well, in particular, what we've done in this process is that we have a non-executive president. And so what that means is that the president is not involved in the administration of government. Government will be administered in very much the same way as you know it now. The prime minister will have our leader of the opposition. We're going to have the cabinet system. We're not changing our parliamentary cabinet system of government. And so it will look the same as what you see now, except we will no longer have colonial references to Her Majesty, even the Governor General as the representative, as part of the process. The Governor General will not be required to assent to legislation and things like that. And so having a Jamaican as the final step of those processes is good. I think that if you as an outsider should look at our the legal infrastructure of this country, it should be clear to you that we are sovereign and independent. And I think that means removing these colonial references. I think that, like you, I've heard many misconceptions about the Constitution, and my biggest one is that the Constitution, or matters related to the Constitution, that it's not a bread and butter issue. And I think I really want to clear up that misconception, because as the document that underpins every other piece of legislation in this country, as the document that sets out our the infrastructure of our government, that creates the institutions that protect our rights, and that also tells you what your rights are. I do not know what is a more bread and butter issue.
What people might think is that it's not something that is putting money into their pockets, right?
Right.
But you're saying based on how the constitutional is framed
And what it does,
everything trickles down from it.
Everything trickles down from it. Every time I watch the news and I see a placard about "We want justice," I think of the fact that all those placards are born out of this document.
Exactly.
It's what this document allows and doesn't allow.
But you have this pretty
that
document.
calls
You
for
can
that.
show them what the pretty document looks like.
This is a copy of our constitution. And it is the first consolidated version of our constitution.
And tell them what consolidated constitution
So
means.
this copy of the constitution includes all amendments that have been made since independence. And this is the first time that we've had a constitution that does that.
Yeah.
And we thought it was important at this stage of the reform process because everybody needs to know and be clear as to the point we're working from. And I don't think that if everybody didn't have the appropriate amendments that we would know what is being reformed.
Exactly.
And so this was really important to have, and it's something that was worked on by the ministry, and we're happy that it exists because it makes the conversation easier going forward.
And I think this is, I mean, come on people, look at it. It's done in our Jamaican
for the first time.
What is better than having our constitution? We're trying to make it by the people, for the people, and it's done in our Jamaican colors, right? So we think that this is, a win from the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, and we hope that persons can be a little bit more educated about what is in the constitution now, and then while we are on this reform process, to know what the amendments will be, right? So we like to keep lawfully explained, fun and light-hearted, right? And we like to have a little bit of, games on our show. So we have a game that we want to call Guess the Legal Term. Now, essentially, what's going to happen, and you can play along in the comments as well, we're going to have 2 or 3 images that we're going to have on the screen, and you are going to put the images together to guess the legal term. So we're going to see how best you can, win our game. All right, so we're going to look at the monitor here. You want a prize? Don't worry, we'll talk off the air, right? So we're going to look at the monitor here, and you're going to guess this legal term. So based on the picture, and again, you guys at home, you can, make your comments and let us know what you think the legal term is. So what do you think this legal term is?
This is a clause.
All right, so I hope that you guys got that one, right? So that's a clause. So the next one won't be so easy, So the next one is on screen. So tell me what you see.
Law reform.
Law reform. But you have to tell them, explain to them why you think it's law reform.
Okay, so the blackboard
is law, yes.
Form, uniform.
And you take off the form, right? So law reform. So you're 2 for 3. Last one now. Tell us what you think this is. So guess the legal term. This one may be a little bit tricky, but let me give you a hint. Not everything that you see is what it is. Right? So it's one word. Right? So you have 2 for 3. I think you can get the queen sweep. Yes. So put the first image with the track. Tell me what you get. So you see con.
Oh, is this a contract?
Contract. Oh, wonderful. So you're 3 for 3. Wonderful. Great. See? So it wasn't hard, right? And I think that those are just some, legal terms that we have within, our space, our legal landscape that we use. So I think that was a good game. I hope that you guys at home played along as well, and I hope you got those, terms correct. We don't have a prize for everybody. We may just have a prize for Miss Mills, but we'll talk afterwards. But Miss Mills, thank you so much. You have been a joy to listen to. And we want to know, is there anything else about the constitutional reform program here at the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, dubbed the Road to Republic campaign, that you want to tell our viewers? Anything else? Any last bit of information?
Yes, absolutely. Please stay informed. We will continue to try to advance this bill through the Parliament. We are going to continue to have the discussions that we promised to have around human rights, around figuring out issues related to our judiciary, and the work will continue. And so I implore everyone to stay informed, to send your comments to us if you have any at any point in the process, to keep writing in the newspapers. As much as constitutional reform happens in the Parliament, it also happens in the public. And the constitutional reform cannot continue in the Parliament without appropriate participation in the public. And so we want you guys to continue talking about this in your spaces, in your communities, in your churches, in your schools, so that the momentum can continue.
Keeps building. Yeah. And that's a wrap on today's episode of Lawfully Explained. We hope you now have a clearer understanding of what constitutional reform is all about. That it's not just seen as a legal process, but a national journey to redefining who we are and where we're heading as a people. Remember, this is not just about lawyers and lawmakers. It's about you, your future, and your role in shaping Jamaica's next chapter. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with others who may need to be a part of this conversation. For more information on constitutional reform, you can visit the website at roadtorepublic@mlca.gov.jm, or simply follow us on social media. That's on Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook at Road to Republic JA. Now, for all other legal updates, be sure to follow the ministry on all socials at MLCA.gov.jm. My name is Nastasia McFarlane, and as always, stay informed, stay engaged, so that it can be lawfully explained. See you next time.